this is part 24 of our 100% walkthrough for Oracle of Ages. And this part, we're almost at finishing off. We'll be going through the second part of Crown Dungeon, where we'll take on the mini-boss Smasher. We'll get the compass. We'll get
Campus.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm trying.
You're struggling right out of the gates here.
There's a lot going on before the intro that I got to do behind the scenes. We'll get 50 rupees, and we'll get the boss key at the end.
Now, I've mentioned this, I think, in previous dungeons, but this is another dungeon where we get the dungeon item, in this case, the cane, before we fight the mini-boss, and I'm just not a fan of that at all. Like, I like the idea of the dungeon item being the reward for beating the mini-boss, so for me, it just feels so out of order compared to, like, 99% of other Zelda games.
And I think it's happened in this game because didn't we already mention, I believe we mentioned that point in an earlier dungeon, but, you know, it could have been another game too, so... But anyways, I thought like all these dungeons, like you said, have only been 2 parts. I was almost like we finished off the dungeon. I was like, no, wait, this dungeon is actually a little bit longer than the other ones. But I really don't even have a point, to be honest with you, other than that.
Well, I really liked seeing in the previous room before we came to this underground area, like we saw the ball and chain soldier. Make an appearance, and I've always liked seeing him pop up in these games because for me, it's a flashback to the very first mini boss we ever faced in A Link to the Past, and for both of us, that was our first Zelda game. So just seeing the ball and chain soldier make an appearance is always just a good flashback moment for me.
Well, that was cool, but this room right here, as you saw right there, is not very cool at all. Just like any kind of dark room, or especially one with invisible floors, like we're not a fan of. And this one, as you can see, you basically just put the block in front of you, and it kind of shows you which way the walkway goes, but just... I mean, even if you know which way the walkway goes, like as you saw me, like you can still fall off if you go a little bit too far, so I was just not a big fan of this room. I don't like when I can't see stuff.
Me neither, and that's just been in any Zelda game. Anytime we've come into especially the 2D ones. Anytime we come into one of these just pitch black rooms, it's just we hate them in general. Like anytime it's like a dark palace, a dark dungeon, whatever, or just a dark room in the dungeon, it's always something I feel like we complain about because we just really don't like it at all. You throw in invisible floors and we're not going to like it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I mean, there's only one time I really like it to be dark, and you know, that's maybe if you had too much.
Hopefully we're not playing video games when that's happening.
And you're taking that girl home, you know, that's when maybe it's good to be dark, but that's about the only time I can think of right there.
I will say the only exception, like when it comes to Zelda games, and not real life examples, but like I remember the Dark Palace in A Link Between Worlds, like actually had a really good use of light that like contrasted the dark, and I liked that a lot, and it was about the only time in any Zelda game I've ever actually liked a darker dungeon. Just the use of light in that was really good.
Well, kind of going along with that, the color of the dungeon in A Link Between Worlds kind of also add to that whole light and color to it. Like in a lot of dark dungeons or dark rooms, you just don't have that much color, and so that's why I like it about the Dark Palace and Link Between Worlds, and because of that, you know, adding that little visual, that little colorful visual, which we always love in Zelda games. Like, maybe we really like the Dark Palace, but I guess we're kind of talking about a whole dungeon instead of just one room. But I guess sometimes those rooms feel like they're almost a full dungeon in themselves.
Well, and just with how easy it is to screw up in that room, to fall off the ledge, it's just, it can be frustrating. So we have every right to, you know, really go off the rails talking about it.
Now, this mini boss right here, I actually like this mini boss because, like the ball and chain soldier that we just saw a little while ago, this is a flashback to a mini boss or a boss. I can't remember which one it actually was in Link's Awakening. So I kind of always like that flashback, especially in a 2D Zelda game. You know, like not a flashback to Link to the Past in the actual 2D Zelda game we just played. So, and I always kind of like this boss because you also, even though I think he throws a little bit too hard, it's kind of just like playing pitch and catch with him.
It really is. And I think one difference, though, between this and the Link's Awakening, it seems like the ball will disappear occasionally in this one. I don't think it did that in the Link's Awakening one, but I could be wrong. It's been a while.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, I think on this one, I don't know if we saw it or not, but it's kind of like a timing thing where if you hold onto the ball too long, I think it just kind of like not blows up, it kind of just goes poof right there. But you know, one thing about the pitch and the catch though is that he doesn't catch very well, and I guess
no, he does not.
That's technically why we beat him in the end. But just kind of a cool little mini boss, cool little visuals. Yeah,
he clearly pitches well because he nailed you the first couple throws he had.
Well, you know, he pitches. Like I said, he throws way too hard for me. It comes at you fast, but that's kind of late to get the compass in a dungeon, really.
It really is. I mean, we're over halfway through the dungeon already. We've gotten the dungeon item, the map, and everything. It's like, it just seems very late in the game. We've gotten most of the keys and everything. Obviously, we're going to get the boss key still, but I agree with you that it seems like normally we get the compass before the dungeon item, you would think. And just kind of going back to fighting the mini-boss after you get the dungeon item, that mini-boss placement in the dungeon was just kind of weird. It's like there was really not much going on before or after it. There was no real reward for beating it. It's just, to me, it just felt weird, like they just threw it in there,
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's going to be the next part because we haven't prepared for that part, so we actually don't know what's happening in the next part. We'll hopefully know more about that when we actually do the commentary.
Hopefully.
Although we might not know much more.
Nah.
But kind of like we get the boss key at the end of this one, and so in the next one, it's kind of like, well, how do you have a whole nother part when you have absolutely nothing to do but the boss? So there's got to be a lot of that in the next part where we're kind of just walking around, not really doing anything, probably just, I guess, solving puzzles and trying to find our way around the dungeon.
Plus, I think at one place it's either in the first part or this part, we actually see the door leading to the boss where we'll use the boss key. So it's like, how much exploring can there possibly be in that third part? I hope it's a short part just because of that reason.
Now, we've seen this like little mechanic before, like where we kind of walk on top of the blocks. In this dungeon, like, I mean, first of all, for some reason, that's a mechanic that I always forget that I can do because you always think, oh, there's blocks in the way. I can't, like, get past these unless they're down. So it's a mechanic that I always forget, but I also found it to make the puzzles in this dungeon. It just made it a little more difficult. And, like, a good example, actually, is in this room. You'll see we have to hit it a couple times, go get, I believe, a 50 rupee piece.
I think it is the 50
rupee
chest,
come back and do it a couple times. So it just, we've done it before, but it was, like, a lot more intense and just a lot more of a puzzle in this dungeon.
I think this is the first dungeon in this particular game that we did it. Like, we did it in Link to the Past. I'm pretty sure we did, or in Link's Awakening.
We didn't do it. We didn't do it in Link's to the Past. We did
just
do
Link's
it
Awakening.
In Link's Awakening.
But yeah, this is the first time in this game, and it's just a lot of the puzzles in this dungeon do revolve around like lowering and raising these blocks to clear up where you need to go. Sometimes the switch, like you see here, is in an entirely different room, things like that. So you just gotta keep in mind where those switches are and where you need the blocks to be. And sometimes that can honestly get pretty confusing.
It's like I said at the end of the last part, I believe. I hate any dungeon that has those red and blue blocks because it seems like you always forget one. And then you go like 3 or 4 more rooms and you're like, oh crap, I was supposed to hit that switch and make it go the other way. And just, I don't know, it's just a pain. And I can never remember really the sequence. And this game actually has, I don't know how much more it has in the game, but I believe it does happen again in a dungeon.
I think so too.
Getting the sequence is like always a tough thing.
It really is. And here's the big puzzle with the 8 blocks that we kind of mentioned in the previous part, where I like how the statues that are the same color will move in the same direction at the same time, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I had you. Well, I've not messed up any of this commentary night, so,
No, never at all.
Just messed up like every single intro again.
But the cane is used so well just to hold the statues in place.
Yep.
It's just a really well done puzzle, and I don't think it matters
It doesn't.
Colors you get in what spot, as long as you get them in that square.
But anyways, this will go ahead and wrap up part 24 of our 100% walkthrough for Oracle of Ages.
You kind of wrapped things up a little bit early there, didn't you?
Yeah, I was looking at the time or the production, not the timer. That's my bad.